Hello, I'm Dr. Adriana Potter, and on Benefit Yourself series today, we're gonna talk about how to make a kombucha. I have been brewing kombucha for about 2 years, and I started because it's a very healthy way for you to get probiotics, and it can help you in digestion and also healing your gut. I have my own issues with my own GI, and this is something that I found that it is very nice to have that kind of drink that gives you a probiotic, and it's not that hard to make it once you have your starter. Okay, several patients of mine asked me to post a video about how I make my kombucha, and today we're gonna go over that. Okay, usually you have a starter and somebody will give it to you, or you being having what is called your Scoby hotel. Okay, let's talk about the Scoby first because we're gonna start in that one. Right here on this big huge jar, I have my last batch that has been brewing up into for this fermentation. So we have two types of fermentation that happens. You have a fermentation 1 and fermentation 2. The fermentation 1 is this one is already ready, and we're gonna get the starter for the other one to go on. And once we mix it up the second time with this batch in here, we're gonna put in the bottles and do a fermentation 2. Okay, so this is how we get started. We have your Scoby, which I'm gonna remove it in here. And this is your Scobimat. My mom calls it the alien. Okay, and then in here it is the first fermentation, and we need to separate 2 cups because we're gonna do another batch to start it. So we get a cup. Okay, so you're gonna separate about 2 cups of this juice in here, this tea that already have fermented. And usually your starter will come with a little Scobimat and this would be enough for one of the containers, and I'm gonna get a little bit more for my second container. And then I'm gonna show you how you should do the first fermentation in a second. So behind me, I have 2 pots going, boiling the water, and I'm gonna be adding Lipton tea. I make just a regular Lipton tea, and I use 10 of these pouches on each of this, I believe it's 2.5 gallon containers. For me, and the temperature that I currently have in my house, which is about 78 in my laundry room, that's where I put in my scobies, my kombucha to ferment. It takes about anything between 30 to 45 days. It depends how warm it gets or how much I run the dryer in that room. But that's the fermentation number 1, is about 30 to 45 days. And that can change a lot depending on the temperature that your house is. For me, it takes about 40 days. That's what I like it, because it's the right amount of fizziness. Okay. After we have separated the amount that we needed to start it, the next batch, then you can start mixing whatever fruit you like for your kombucha. Okay, the way I make, I actually have some frozen strawberries, because usually when the strawberries are going bad, before they go bad, I actually put them in the freezer, and I use for my kombucha. So that, if I were to measure, because I eyeball it a lot, so it would be about cup and a half in here, and about 3 cups of strawberries, depending how fruity you like. So the sweeter you use the fruits, the more fizz you're gonna have for your kombucha. Okay. Then I actually put some of my tea that has already been fermented for about 40 days, and I will grind it. Okay, so now it's going to be a little noisy. the fruit is all mixed up into the kombucha with the strawberry, I'm actually gonna strain it. I don't like the fiber of the fruit into my kombucha, so I strain it. Some people don't mind, it's just a personal preference. The nice thing is that if you strain your juice, you actually can save the fiber and make a little jam, okay? So I have 2 strainers in here, one very, very fine and one a little bit open, so I just kind of do a double straining to get more of the fiber, and I put it right back into my big gallon in here, okay? And we keep it going in. So I started this because I have digestive issues for a very long time, and I love the fizzness, but the carbonation, sometimes it gives me some stomach ache too, so I try to, instead of doing carbonation or even doing wine, I try to just do the kombucha, okay? It can have a little bit of alcohol, but not enough for you to get boost. But the biggest benefit that I found for that is actually in digestion and helping with food absorption. One of the issues with my gut is that I found that I am gluten sensitive, and that's what causes me to have the GI pain, the gut pain, and having also absorption issues. All right, so I'm going to show you here. This is the fiber that I got it, and I just put in my saucer, my pan here, because I'm going to add sugar to it, and I'm going to make jam. And I keep straining. And another thing that I added to my kombucha is mint, but mint in the jam, I don't like it. I like just the strawberry, and so I will grind it again, the mint, into the kombucha mix and strain it again. Some of the flavors that I use for the kombucha, this one is a strawberry and mint. That's my favorite one. Sometimes I will use guava, and I usually get the guava nectar from Goya, and I use that a whole container for 2.5 gallons of kombucha. And I use mango nectar as well. Sometimes I do mango and mint. I really like the mint, and I actually grow it in my own backyard in here. So these are my beautiful mint. All right, it looks like my water is already boiling, so I'm going to add 10 pouches of Lipton tea into the pot. So you turn off the pot, turn off the light, the gas, put the tea inside and let it cover until cool off. So while the tea is cooling off, we're going to continue doing the bottling. Here we have the strawberry, which I'm going to show you later what I do with that. So I'm going to save it here for now. Okay. Now we're going to do the mint. Okay. And like I said, I grew this in my own yard, so they're beautiful, organic. Doesn't have to, but you can buy in the store. Should be fine too. It just happened that where I live, it grows like a weed, so it's nice and smells so good. And I love doing like lemonade and making like a virgin mojito. I love that. Put in my water. There's quite a lot of greens in here, but it's the way I like it. All right, so I'm mixing my kombucha with the fruit. I will get a little bit more into my pitcher here to grind my mint now. All right, grinding time. Alrighty. So I'm going to sit a little bit so the mint will kind of absorb and release the flavor into the juice. And let's talk about the bottles. So I have 2 types of bottles that I use it here. One, it is I purchased on Amazon, that it is a self-sealing bottle and it just closes. I like that one, but they can be expensive. And then I repurpose some bottles of the kombucha that I bought in the store, so that's totally fine. I make sure that I wash in hot water and I keep them closed until it's ready for me to use it for the fermentation number 2. Okay. All right, let's just strain it, the mint now. So minty. Alrighty. So now we're gonna strain this, because I don't like the leaves. They can get very slimy if you don't strain it, and it doesn't taste good on the jam. So I grind it separately. Okay. So once I strain it, I will rinse my bottle, and we're gonna get started with bottling out for the second fermentation. Okay. So it's very important that when you get your fermentation one done and you mix it with the fruit, to stir it very, very, very well. Because if you don't, you're gonna have an even amount of the yeast that will kind of create the fizz for your second fermentation. So stir it very well, and sometimes I even taste a little bit. So let's see how it tastes a little bit. I like the flavor. So good. Alrighty. To pour in the bottles, I like using my pitcher. So I just pour into my pitcher and then pour in the bottles. So you can use a funnel. I find it easier to hold the pitcher than it is to hold the container. And I just fill each of the bottle. And you want to fill all the way to the top. The less amount of space that you have it, the better it is for you to keep that carbonation in place. Okay, the 2.5 gallons that I have it here, most of the time it will yield about anything between 14 to 16 bottles, and the amount of sugar that it has in it is not as much as you think, because even though you're going to add the sugar for the first fermentation, the scoby, right, that probiotic, the little bacteria, the healthy bacteria that is growing in there, will consume the sugar and start fermenting, right? And so there's not a lot of sugar. And I kind of made a calculation based on the book that I read, which I will share with you later on. You can look into the link for that book on the description of the video. And it is about 80 calories per bottle. But the more fruit you add, the more calories you will have it. Okay. All right, let's fill it a little bit one more time. Excellent. Okay. So this one, I'm actually going to use a funnel, because I'm more likely to make a mess. And if you're using the bottleneck bottles, you want to go almost all the way to the line here. I'm going to show you in a second. So you kind of have to go back and refill it again, because the foam, it prevents you from filling up the right level. And if you have too much space in there, chances are that your kombucha may explode and leak it out. The second fermentation, I leave it at room temperature for about 7 to 10 days. The longer, the more fizz we'll have. But it also may explode too. So, and then you waste a lot of precious kombucha, and you don't want to do that. So those are the 2 bottles that I have in. And I also have one of these big bottles in here. And that one would probably have to stay a little bit longer. That's actually a liter. It will have to stay a little bit longer outside to get more of the fizz. But you can surely use this one as well. You don't have to use only the short bottles. Because the nice thing about this resealable one, you can just serve yourself and then close it and put it back in the fridge. So after 10 days, I put it in the fridge. And once it's in the fridge, it will stay there for a pretty good, 40 to 60 days. It never makes it that time because we drink it before then. Usually I have alternating batches. So it's like a constant brewing it. However, my husband did not seal one of them very well, and we end up having a lot of fruit flies on them, and that was nice. So I had to throw it away because it won't taste good. Okay. All right, so this is what I'm telling you, to fill it up all the way in the top. So that's number one in here. And I like to rinse it because otherwise the ants will get to it, and I'll rinse it a little bit later before I put it to ferment. And here, so as far as the top as you can do it, and I have, I think, probably about 2 more bottles in there. Let's see. And if when you're doing the fermentation, you don't want to put it in a place that it has light or direct sun at least, and you want to make sure that it is dark or just room light, but no direct sun. Okay. All right. So this is another one. Make sure to seal it very well, because if it doesn't, you're gonna lose the fizz. And that's one of the things that's like, why I don't have any fizz? Because you didn't close the bottle very well. That might be one of the reasons. We have this one here. And I also have one of the dark bottles, which is totally fine to use it as well. So whatever bottle I have, I'll use it. The bottle is just a vessel. What we want is what's inside. Right? Almost not already. So 2 years is a long time, and it took me a pretty good 6 months to 8 months to finally start getting some good results and figuring out what I was doing it right or wrong with my kombucha. And so I had a little notebook that I kept marking, when I started, fermentation number 1, fermentation number 2, what kind of mixes I did it, what kind of fruits did I use it, did I use a pulp, did I use a fruit nectar, did I use grinding fresh fruit, and alrighty. Now we're gonna be ready to start making your batch for your first fermentation number 1, okay? So right here, I saved those 2 cups from my previous batch that I just used it for my fermentation number 2 here with the bottles, and 1 cup in each of my 2.5 gallon containers for me to do my fermentation number 1. So 1 cup in here, 1 cup in there. And I also already split my Scobimat, so I'm gonna put a little bit in each one of them, and that's gonna go in there, okay? And so we have the tea that is already brewing in there. We're gonna let that cool it off a little bit more, and then we're gonna mix it in here. So you have to make sure that you remove the pouches and make sure that your tea is actually a little bit cold, okay? So you don't want to put a hot scalding tea into the starter, because it's going to kill the bacteria and it won't do anything, okay? For the tea, we're going to use, one of them I'm going to use white sugar, the other one I'm going to use brown sugar. I want to see what difference that's going to make it with my fermentation, okay? So you just measure. I like adding my sugar to the tea while it's still warm, because it will help the sugar to dissolve a little bit more evenly. And then I will add a lot of ice to cool it off a little bit faster, so that way I can mix it right now for the video. sugar. Make sure to stir it very well so it's completely dissolved. Okay. And then we can add ice to it to make sure that tea cools off fast. And I know that some people probably have done some of the green tea. I have not been successful with that, so I just kind of gave up on that. Well, it looks like my tea is way too hot for me to mix it. So instead of rushing it, I'm gonna keep it cold. And if you are doing that, make sure to use your cheesecloth on the top of the containers and completely seal it. Don't just leave it open, because that's how the flies get to it. And then the flies will deposit eggs in there, and it will grow a bunch of larvae, and you're gonna lose your batch. It happens to me more than once, and I don't want that to happen again. So I have a very tight rubber band, and I put it in here on the top to seal it. Make sure that there's no little holes peeking in there, so the little sneaky flies don't get to it, okay? So put it to the side and come back to it later when the tea is colder. Mix it, put it into my room over there, and let it brew for 40 days, 40 to 45 days. It has a very distinctive smell. After you've been doing it for a while, you kind of know when it's ready by the smell. It will take you some time to get used to it, but that's one of the things doing it. All right, so let's go over here. So here I have my puree that I just strained it from my strawberry. So I'll add it about 3/4 of a cup of sugar. I'm gonna put it in the stove, reduce it, and it will be my jam. My kids love it, so I use them so I don't waste the fruit. And I'll put the pulp, the fiber into my juice, but I repurpose for something else. Okay? Hopefully you like the video and you understand a little bit about the process of making kombucha. And it is a nice probiotic that can help with gut healing, digestion, and is also, and if you think about it, if your gut is in good standing, you have a good standing for your immune system as well. You have less allergies, better absorption for your nutrients. So that's a nice way for you to get some healthy, organic probiotics that is quite cheap for you to make it. So it's just tea, fruit, sugar, water, and you have to have your Scoby starter. I'm Dr. Adriana Potter. On Benefit Yourself series today, we cover the kombucha making process for fermentation number 1 and fermentation number 2 in the bottles. This is a nice cheap way for you to get your probiotics at home, and hopefully you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe and press the bell button to get more information on your future videos. Bye.